If you are a fan of Lego, you're a fan of Star Wars, the prequel trilogy, and or you are a fan of the Mandalorian series, then you definitely appreciate a good Naboo and one Starfighter. What is up, everybody? It is the Brick Studs here, back again with another Lego video here for you today. And as you can see, I am normally the man that is behind the camera, but instead I'm in front of it. Well, kind of. If you've watched our previous video, then you know that Jesse has sent Javier to go find an ATTE, and he is not allowed to come back until he does. Well, I did the exact same thing to Jesse. I told him to go find an ATTE, and he is not allowed to come back until he does. So I will be conducting the videos... Hang on, I'm getting a text. It's a text from Javier, hang on. It says, help me, I'm in a forest and I'm lost, yada yada yada, no water and wildlife, bears sleeping under, that's too many words. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on with the video. So in front of me, I have a Lego set 75325, which is the Mandalorians and one Starfighter. This set has 412 pieces and it retails for $60 US, which I believe is a lot of money for 412 pieces. This is also a 9+ set. However, if you've been around with our channel for a while, you know that we don't exactly believe in the age ratings. We believe that Lego is for all ages. Even the Duplos. All I'm gonna say is don't be knocking on these 4+ sets, okay? These are very cool sets. Now on the front of the box, it displays 4 minifigures: the Mandalorian, Grogu, Pelimoto, and BD Droid. So I mean, really technically 2 of these are only minifigures, and then 2 other figures are a 1 stud wide sort of thing, but I'm just going to consider them minifigures because, you know, simplicity. And on the back of the box, you do have some features that are displayed, such as a storage compartment to store the Mandalorian's backpack, presumably to allow him to sit inside the Starfighter in itself, and a play feature that allows you to fire a missile by pressing the air filter looking thing on the front of the Starfighter. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open up the contents inside this box. Now, as you can see, this is a tabbed box, so we are once again going to be proving the tab box theory that the instructions and the stickers that are currently inside this box will be 100% perfect. Also, one thing I wanted to mention about these tab boxes, it does seem like that Lego is starting to really move toward these tab boxes, these boxes that have the tape on the side where you can just cut it open cleanly and then be able to actually keep the box. They're starting to become less and less common, so just keep an eye out for that. Lego does not like box collectors. So inside we have 3 poly bags, 1 instruction booklet that is 100% perfect, and a very small sticker sheet that again is 100% perfect, thus proving the tab box theory. So the building portion of this set wasn't particularly difficult. It was actually very straightforward, very mellow. I've definitely built some more complicated sets like the X-Wing. That was definitely more complicated than this one. There's really no moving pieces or super intricate parts. It's very straightforward. The second bag isn't even for anything but the engines themselves, so it's not a very time-consuming build. For me, it was just taking a little bit longer because I was too busy dancing to Big Time Rush. I mean, other music that I listen to that's not them. Now, as for my favorite portion of the build, I personally liked the engines. The second bag, again, as I said, was mostly for the engines. There were very few pieces that were actually part of the actual ship itself. And it was just very nice. It was very straightforward, and it was very satisfying to put a lot of these pieces together. One thing that I will mention is that I did confirm that I was given an incorrect piece. Now, I don't exactly know what these kinds of pieces are called, but let's just call it the long blue thing, the long blue strip, okay? The long blue 1x6 or whatever it is. I was given one of those and then one that was a little bit longer. It was 2 studs longer. So it didn't exactly fit on the build correctly. So instead I had to go into our bins that are behind me right here, and I had to pull out 3 long strips, whatever they're called, put them together, and then I was able to complete the set. And then I just put that one back in the bin. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and start with the minifigures. So we're gonna work our way from the smallest minifigure to the largest, starting with Grogu. Look at how tiny Grogu is. He's sitting here in his little brown or tan robes, and he's just this tiny little 1 stud wide figure with a removable head, and the head is made of rubber. But look at him, he's just so tiny in his tiny little hands and his tiny little arms. and it's just tiny little tininess. And here we have BD Droid, barely standing any taller than Grogu. He is still only a stud wide, and he is a custom mold with a little bit of painted detail all over his body. Third, we have Pelimoto. Moto. She's actually the reason why this version of the N1 Starfighter exists. She's the one that actually built it. She's got her brown jumpsuit on with a dark green or dark blue shirt underneath it, and she has a little accessory. She has a tool belt that you can actually place in between the torso and the legs. She has her long brown wavy hair, and she is double faced. She has a very neutral face, and she has a face where she's kind of smiling, where she's just a little more enthusiastic, and she also has a wrench. And the final minifigure of this series is the Mandalorian himself in his iconic Beskar armor with the brown outer suit, Beskar shoulder pads, and the silver helmet. But there's one thing that stands out a little bit differently than the previous iterations of the Mandalorian minifigures. This one has an actual face on his headpiece. He has an actual face. It's not just a black head. In this one, he's kind of got a little like scruffy beard with some marks on his face, and it's actually very, very cool to see that, since we really haven't seen that before, or at least I haven't, because the minifigures that we reviewed that have the Mandalorian in them only have the black head. He also has his backpack that is removable, which we will get to that in a little bit as well. And on the back, he just has some more armor pieces, and he is also wielding the Darksaber. Now, I'm honestly a little bit disappointed in this Darksaber because, you know, they actually do make sword pieces that can fit in lightsaber hilts. So it's kind of surprising to me that they didn't actually just make one of those pieces black and then put it in the lightsaber hilt, or even make a custom piece already. They could have already had that, because they could include that in Sony sets if they just made a custom lightsaber piece designed for the Darksaber. But instead they decided to choose this little black stick. It's kind of lazy in my opinion, but I still think it's pretty cool. So those are the 4 minifigures. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. The Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter. Now, at first glance, this thing is actually a lot bigger than I was really expecting. For some reason in my mind, I don't think anything under 500 pieces is going to be something relatively massive, but here it is on my arm for scale, so it kind of goes all the way up my forearm to about halfway. So it's definitely a pretty decent size for a playset. So let's just get right into it and start with the front here. Now, any keen-eyed viewers or any people who truly pay attention to detail would notice that there is something a little bit different off the bat between the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter and a regular Naboo N1 Starfighter. For those who don't know, the original Naboo Starfighter was very smooth in the front. In fact, it was so smooth that even the blasters that would sit in the front were very concealed and hidden away to allow the actual Starfighter to have a very, very smooth and chromed out front. This one, however, has the blasters very extended, so they seem to be actually sticking out of the ship a little bit more. I think they did this in the show just to kind of contrast so that it's not an exact 1-1 copy of the Naboo Starfighter, but I think it's honestly it's a welcomed change. I think it actually fits the Starfighter very, very well to have the guns sticking out just a little bit more. And then it's got the very iconic triangled angled front that's like a one-piece wing sort of thing that leads to the 2 engines. Now, the 2 engines on the Starfighter in itself are very different from each other. As you know, the original Starfighter has fully complete engines that are completely protected, whereas this one, because it's just kind of built from scrap and it's custom made, it's not 100% perfect. So both the engines actually have 2 separate details between them, or they have separate details that differentiate them from each other. And the best part about the engines in themselves is that the front piece, I don't exactly remember what this is called, I'm like brain farting it, but it is a painted piece. It is not something that required a sticker, so I'm very, very thankful for that. At least a couple pieces in here were not stickers. As we move down into the middle of the ship, we have this classic car air filter thing. I honestly don't know why they felt the need to put this on the actual Starfighter in the show, and it just, again, even in Lego form, it looks really weird. But I will say that this does actually have a purpose in the Lego set. If you push down on it, you will actually get a flick fire action from the flick fire missile. and I'm pretty sure I just lost that missile forever. So even though I'm not a huge fan of the air filter / carburetor sticking out of the N1 Starfighter, I will say it's actually very nice that they implemented this as a play feature because 1, it's just convenience, and 2, it prevents accidental firings. You know, you have to actually put your finger on top of this. It's not something that's just sticking out that you might bump into something and it accidentally sends the missile flying off into wherever it's going to land in your room and then you never find it again. It also does come with 3 missiles. However, I have already lost 2 of them just kind of doing reshoots and trying to get footage of me firing the missiles. I've already lost 2 of them. So be sure to keep track of those missiles because they are very, very, very easy to lose. Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention, the top of the carburetor looking thing is actually a sticker. And I got it on there pretty well using the Lysol method. I didn't have any trouble with that. I was able to move it in position very well, but I still think it looks pretty good. It's not a painted piece, but I think I did a pretty okay job with placing it. And then behind the actual carburetor looking thing, you have these 2 little vents, and then it's basically just a bunch of gray pieces that kind of smooth out the sides, make it look a little more nicer so that there's not just studs sticking out everywhere. Now moving on to the Mandalorian's cockpit. This is actually a very basic cockpit. It's got a very brown interior. I don't know if it actually has a brown interior in the show, but it does have a very, very brown interior, and then just a very simple set of gauges, which also were a sticker. And then behind the Mandalorian's cockpit, you have little Grogu's cockpit. He fits in there so perfect. You just set him on the little stud that's sticking out, and then you close the door, and then you're on your way. Look at it. It's just so cool. It's so nice that they actually found a use for the spot that the droid would sit on a Naboo Starfighter, and they used it for Grogu. But one thing that I will mention about this Lego set, be careful when pulling out Grogu because you could actually pull the platform that he sits on out like I just did. And then moving on to the tail, it's not really anything special, though it does kind of make some utilization of some very interesting pieces, but there is one piece on this tail that I actually want to talk about, and it is this piece right here. So this is one of those weird pieces that's like half plastic, half rubber. So on the end tip, it's fully rubber, it's bendable. This is probably to prevent kids from poking their eyes out, but then the other half right here is purely plastic, and you can honestly kind of tell where it goes from plastic to rubber. And then down below you just have the 3rd little engine, and this little engine utilizes some pretty unique pieces, and it's actually very, very well put together. I like how this was actually put together. I liked building this piece too. It's a very, very nice little piece that doesn't really look like it's a bunch of weird, crazy pieces, but it actually is. You know, once you start dissecting it, it really is just a bunch of really weird, crazy pieces, but this just looks like something that's kind of one piece that you just stuck on top of there. So there you have it, the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter with the 4 minifigures. Now, me personally, I think this set is a really great set. I do think it is a tad bit expensive at $60. However, this is a very good piece that can double as a display piece or as a full-on play set. I think with this set they had playability in mind, especially with the flick-fire missiles. So whether you're a Star Wars Lego collector, just a regular Lego collector, or you're a younger viewer and you like to actually play with your Legos, this set is kind of actually a middle ground. And especially with 4 minifigures, you definitely have a little bit of playability. Even with the Mandalorian and his Darksaber, if you have any other Star Wars Lego sets of the recent series, you have the Mandalorian with the Darksaber that you can go around and have battles with. So I think this is a very good set for anybody to purchase, whether you're a Lego collector or you're just a young viewer who likes to play with their Legos. This has a lot of playability with it. But what did you guys think? Did you guys like this Lego set? Do you hate something about this Lego set, like specifically the carburetor air filter from a classic car that for some reason is just sitting on top of this thing? Did you like that the Mandalorian has the Darksaber? Do you think that the Darksaber actually needs to be changed to actually look like the Darksaber like I do? Tell me what you think below in the comments. But with not much else that needs to be said, we hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like. Also hit that subscribe button with that bell icon for more future videos, and don't forget to check the description for all our social media links. We'll see you next time.